The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Earth's Unified Defense Command Center erupted into chaos as the massive alien ships appeared in orbit, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian against the blue sky. The screens lit up with a transmission that would change human history forever. Commander James Walker stood at attention, his weathered face reflecting the glow of the main display. The alien representative, tall and imposing, delivered their judgment with cold precision. Humanity has been evaluated and found wanting. Your species is too aggressive, too unpredictable to join galactic civilization. You will be relocated. The room fell silent. Decades of hoping for first contact had led to this moment, but not in the way anyone had imagined. The aliens called themselves the Confederation, an alliance of species that governed most of known space. They had been watching Earth for centuries, and their verdict was final. You have 1 Earth month to prepare, the alien continued. We will provide basic colony ships and essential technology. Your species will be transported to the outer regions of the galaxy, where you can develop without interfering with civilized space. In the days that followed, panic gripped the planet. Some wanted to fight, but the Confederation's technology was far beyond Earth's capabilities. Their ships could disable entire defense systems without firing a shot. Resistance would be futile. Walker found himself appointed as the leader of what they now called the Exodus Fleet. The Confederation provided massive ships, each capable of housing millions. The vessels were basic but sturdy, equipped with simple, faster-than-light drives and life support systems. We shouldn't scatter, Walker argued during the final planning session. If we split up, we'll lose everything that makes us human. We need to stay together, build something new. The other leaders agreed. Instead of dividing into smaller groups and seeking different destinations, humanity would face exile as one. The loading of the ships began, a massive undertaking unlike anything in human history. Cities emptied, families gathered their most precious belongings. Engineers and scientists worked frantically to copy as much of Earth's knowledge as possible onto the ship's databases. They wouldn't leave their history behind. The day of departure arrived too quickly. Walker stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching as the last shuttles brought people aboard. 8 billion humans, their entire civilization, packed into a fleet of colony ships. Final check complete, his second in command, Linda Roberts, reported. All ships report ready for departure. Walker looked at Earth one last time through the view screen. The blue marble that had been humanity's cradle for millions of years now seemed small and distant. The Confederation ships loomed nearby, making sure they left as ordered. "Send this message to all ships," Walker said, his voice firm. "This is not our end. This is our beginning. They think they're punishing us, but they're setting us free. Wherever we land, we'll build something greater than what we're leaving behind. That's what humans do. We adapt, we overcome, we thrive." The fleet engaged their engines in perfect synchronization. Earth grew smaller behind them as they pushed into the unknown. The Confederation ships escorted them to the edge of known space, then turned back without a word of farewell. Among the refugees, a strange mixture of fear and excitement took hold. They had lost their home, but gained an entire galaxy of possibilities. Children pressed their faces against viewports, watching stars streak by as the ships traveled faster than light. Walker spent those first weeks organizing and planning. They needed to find the right place to settle, somewhere they could build their future. The ship's basic scanners searched for suitable systems as they traveled deeper into unexplored space. "They gave us these ships thinking we'd just survive," Roberts said one evening, looking at the star charts. "They don't know humans very well, do they?" Walker smiled. "No, they don't. They see us as primitive and dangerous. But we'll show them what humanity can really do when we're pushed. This isn't exile, it's opportunity." The fleet pushed onward into the darkness, carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire species. Humanity had been banished, but they were far from defeated. Their real story was just beginning. After 3 months of traveling through unknown space, The fleet's sensors detected something promising. A red dwarf star system, far from any mapped Confederation territory, appeared on their screens. Unlike the dozens of systems they passed, this one was different. Walker stood before the projected map, studying the system's layout with intense focus. 3 potentially habitable planets orbited the dim red star, each one bathed in a strange radiation that made their instruments flicker. "It's dangerous," Roberts said, pointing to the radiation readings. "The whole system is like a cosmic storm. Most species would avoid settling here." "Most species aren't us," Walker replied, a slight smile crossing his face. "What else do the scans show?" The system was rich in resources. Asteroid belts filled with rare metals circled between the planets. The radiation, while hazardous, created unique energy patterns they'd never seen before. The 3 habitable worlds were harsh but showed signs of liquid water and breathable atmospheres. The fleet slowed as they entered the system, and Walker called a meeting of all ship leaders. The holographic conference room filled with faces both anxious and hopeful. "This system isn't perfect," Walker began, "but it has everything we need. The radiation will help hide us from casual observation. The resources will let us build. The challenges will make us stronger." Initial surveys of the first planet revealed rocky terrain swept by constant storms. The second planet was cold but rich in minerals. The third, while hot and humid, had vast areas suitable for farming. Each world presented its own dangers and opportunities. "We'll call it New Dawn," Roberts suggested during the planning session, "because that's what this is for all of us." The name stuck. Within days, the fleet began the complex process of settling 3 worlds simultaneously. They named the planets Haven, Forge, and Garden, reflecting their primary purposes in humanity's new civilization. Teams of engineers worked to modify their ships' radiation shielding for permanent settlement. The Confederation's basic technology proved more adaptable than intended, responding well to human innovation. They broke down some ships for building materials, creating the first settlements on each world. On Haven, the first planet, they built deep into the rocky terrain, using the natural caves as shelter from the storms. The constant wind became a source of power, with massive turbines rising from the mountain peaks. Forge, the second planet, became their industrial heart. The mineral-rich surface, combined with the system's unique radiation, allowed for new manufacturing processes. The cold was brutal, but the settlers adapted, developing heated suits that would later become standard across their civilization. Garden, despite its harsh heat, proved the easiest to settle. Its fertile soil responded well to earth crops, modified to thrive in the new conditions. Massive greenhouse complexes rose from the jungle-like surface, providing food for the entire system. The radiation remained their biggest challenge. It affected everything from communications to power systems, forcing constant innovation. But with each problem solved, humanity grew stronger, more adapted to their new home. "The Confederation thought this would break us," Walker said, watching the first permanent city rise on Haven. "Instead, it's remaking us into something new." Children born in New Dawn grew up different from their Earth-born parents. They developed a natural resistance to the radiation, their bodies adapting in ways that would later prove crucial. They saw opportunity where others saw danger, beauty in the harsh landscapes that were now their home. 6 months after arrival, the first interplanetary transport system was established. A year later, the population had stabilized, and the first New Dawn-built ships were taking flight within the system. Walker stood on an observation deck on Haven, watching ships move between the 3 worlds. The red dwarf star cast everything in a perpetual twilight, but to him, it was more beautiful than Earth's sun had ever been. "We did it," Roberts said, joining him at the window. "We turned exile into triumph." "We're just getting started," Walker replied, his eyes fixed on the future they were building. "The real work begins now." The radiation-filled skies of New Dawn flickered with constant energy, a reminder of both the system's dangers and its possibilities. Humanity had found more than just a new home. They had found their chance to prove the Confederation wrong about everything. 20 years passed like a storm wind over New Dawn. The system that had once seemed so hostile now pulsed with human achievement. What started as desperate survival had evolved into a civilization unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Robert Walker, son of the original Commander Walker, stood at the control center of Haven's main city. The viewing screen showed a civilization his father could hardly have imagined. The radiation that once threatened their existence had become their greatest asset. "Another radiation surge incoming," announced Thomas Reed, the chief systems operator. But nobody flinched anymore. The city's shields, developed over 2 decades of innovation, didn't just block the radiation. They absorbed it, channeled it, used it. The changes weren't just technological. The children of New Dawn, now adults themselves, had developed unique traits. Their bodies glowed faintly in the dark, their skin containing natural radiation-absorbing elements. Their reflexes were faster, their minds processed information differently than their Earthborn parents. "Look at the latest readings from Forge," Robert said, pointing to a data stream. The second planet had become a marvel of engineering. Massive factories floated in the atmosphere, using the cold and radiation to create materials that shouldn't have been possible. The greatest achievement stood in orbit around Garden, the radiation forge. This massive station had taken 15 years to build, but it could now manipulate the system's unique energy in ways that defied conventional physics. "Your father would be proud," said Linda Roberts, now the elderly head of the Science Council. She had helped guide their development since the beginning. "We've done more than survive. We've evolved." The population had grown to 12 million, spread across 3 worlds and dozens of space stations. Each planet had developed its own culture, but they remained united by their shared history and purpose. Haven had become the administrative and research center, its storm-swept surface now dotted with gleaming cities protected by energy shields. The inhabitants had learned to predict and ride the storms, using them for sport and power generation. On Forge, the population lived mostly underground or in floating cities. They had mastered cold fusion, using the planet's extreme temperatures to their advantage. Their factories produced technologies that would have seemed like magic on Earth. Garden had transformed into a tropical paradise, its harsh heat tamed by environmental systems. Massive agricultural complexes fed the entire system, while its universities studied the biological changes happening to the population. "We're getting reports from the outer sensor network," Thomas announced. "No sign of Confederation activity in nearby sectors. We remain undetected." This was crucial. They had decided years ago to keep their advancements secret. The radiation that made their system seemingly inhospitable also helped mask their true progress from any passing ships. The most significant changes were in their ships. The vessels they now built bore little resemblance to the basic colony ships they'd arrived in. These new ships were sleek, powered by radiation drives that made them faster and more maneuverable than anything the Confederation had. "The latest batch of enhancement procedures is ready," Linda reported, bringing up medical data. The population regularly underwent treatments to help them adapt to their environment. What started as a necessity had become a path to human advancement. Robert walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Haven's eternal twilight cast everything in a red glow, broken by the shimmer of radiation in the sky. The streets were full of people going about their lives, their bodies subtly modified, their technology far beyond what the Confederation thought possible. "We're not the same species they exiled," he said quietly. "We're something new." Linda joined him at the window. "That's what they never understood about humans. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to thrive." In orbit, another ship completed construction, its hull designed to channel radiation rather than block it. In the laboratories of Forge, scientists developed new materials that could change their properties on command. On Garden, children were born with even stronger adaptations to their unique environment. The Confederation had meant to punish humanity. Instead, they had forced them to become something greater. And soon, very soon, they would discover just how much they had underestimated the species they had cast aside. The breakthrough happened in a small research lab on Forge, where Dr. Alice Reed was studying radiation patterns. She had been mapping the unique energy waves that flowed through the New Dawn system when her instruments detected something extraordinary. "This can't be right," she muttered, checking the readings again. The radiation wasn't just moving through space, it was folding it. Within hours, the lab was filled with the system's top scientists. The holographic displays showed energy patterns that defied conventional physics. The radiation wasn't just bending space, it was creating shortcuts through it. "It's like the space itself is being pinched together," Alice explained to the gathered experts. "The radiation is creating natural wormholes, microscopic ones, but they're stable." The implications were staggering. If they could harness this effect, they could develop a form of faster-than-light travel far more efficient than anything the Confederation possessed. The scientists worked day and night, driven by the possibility of such a breakthrough. Robert Walker called an emergency meeting of the System Council. Representatives from all 3 planets gathered in Haven's central chamber to hear the news. "What Dr. Reed has discovered could change everything," he announced. "We can create controlled folds in spacetime. The initial tests suggest we could travel 10 times faster than our current ships." The council chamber erupted in excited discussion. Some saw it as a way to explore beyond their systems secretly. Others worried about the military implications. All agreed it needed to be developed quickly and quietly. Work began immediately. On Forge, they constructed a massive testing facility deep underground. The radiation-enhanced humans could sense the space-folding effect naturally, making it easier to control and manipulate. The first test of the fold drive was conducted on a small probe. Alice stood in the control room, her heart racing as they activated the device. The probe disappeared in a flash of radiation-tinged light, reappearing exactly where they had planned, 50,000 kilometers away. "It works exactly as the calculations predicted," she reported, her voice trembling with excitement. "The fold is stable and controllable." Over the next few months, they refined the technology. Each test revealed new possibilities. The fold drive didn't just move through space, it moved through it efficiently, using the natural radiation patterns they had lived with for 20 years. The Confederation's ships punched through space. Thomas Reed, now a senior engineer, explained. "Ours slips between its folds. It's like comparing a battering ram to a master key." The first ship large enough to carry passengers was ready within 6 months. They named it Pioneer, a sleek vessel designed to channel and use the radiation that made the fold drive possible. Robert stood on the bridge during its maiden voyage. The stars outside shifted as the fold drive activated. There was no sensation of movement, just a brief flash of light, and suddenly they were light years from home. "The navigation systems are perfect," the pilot reported. "We can detect radiation patterns across vast distances. It's like having a map of shortcuts through space." The implications went beyond just travel. The fold technology could be used for communication, for energy transfer, for things they were only beginning to understand. It was a technology born from their unique circumstances, something the Confederation had never imagined possible. "We need to keep this secret," Robert told the Council after the successful test. "At least until we're ready. This gives us an advantage they won't expect." Plans were made to outfit their fleet with fold drives. Training programs were developed to teach pilots how to navigate the radiation patterns. The technology was integrated into their defense systems, their communication networks, their very way of life. "They forced us into this radiation-filled system thinking it would contain us," Alice said, watching another successful test. "Instead, it gave us the key to the galaxy." The discovery of fold technology marked a turning point. Humanity wasn't just surviving in their harsh new home. They had used its unique properties to leap ahead of their former judges. The question now wasn't if they would return to known space, but when and how. In the depths of space, the Pioneer continued its secret test flights, each journey revealing more about their new capabilities. The future had changed, and the Confederation had no idea what was coming. The Confederation survey ship Stellar Observer dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of what their charts marked as empty space. Captain Firstlight, a veteran explorer, expected another routine survey of an uninhabited system. What they found instead made their sensor operators triple-check their instruments. "Impossible," Firstlight muttered, staring at the readings. Where their records showed only a dangerous, radiation-filled system, they detected cities, ships, and energy signatures unlike anything in Confederation space. In Haven's Defense Command, alarms blared as their outer sensors detected the unexpected visitor. Robert Walker rushed to the control center, where the staff was already tracking the Confederation vessel. "They've spotted us," Thomas reported. "No way to hide the cities now. They're broadcasting standard Confederation contact protocols." Robert took a deep breath. They had prepared for this moment, but it had come sooner than expected. "Activate Protocol Firstlight. All ships to defensive positions, but no aggressive moves." The Confederation vessel watched in amazement as ships emerged from hiding spots throughout the system. The vessels moved in ways that defied their understanding of physics, skating along radiation waves as if they were roads in space. "This is New Dawn Control to Confederation vessel," Robert broadcast, using their old communication protocols. "Welcome to human space. We've been expecting you, though perhaps not quite so soon." The response was delayed, filled with obvious shock. This is the human exile system. Our records show this area as uninhabitable." "Things change in 20 years, Robert replied. "We would be honored to receive a diplomatic delegation. Our radiation shielding will protect your ship and crew." The Confederation captain had no choice but to accept. Their small survey ship was completely outmatched by the forces they could see, let alone what might be hidden. As the Confederation shuttle approached Haven's main spaceport, its crew stared in wonder at the cities below. Energy shields shimmered against the radiation-filled sky, while ships of impossible design moved between floating platforms. Robert met them in the arrival chamber, accompanied by Linda Roberts and Alice Reed. The Confederation delegates were visibly shocked by the humans' appearance. Their slight glow, their confident bearing, their complete comfort in an environment that should have been lethal. "How is this possible?" the Confederation science officer asked, scanning the humans with their instruments. "These radiation levels should be dangerous even with shielding." "We adapted," Linda explained simply. "Your people thought this system would limit us. Instead, it forced us to evolve, to innovate, to become something new." The tour that followed left the Confederation delegation speechless. They saw the radiation forges, the biological enhancements, the thriving civilization that had grown in what they had considered a prison. "Your ships," the Confederation captain said, watching vessels move through space. "They're using some form of drive we don't recognize." "We've made a few advances," Robert replied diplomatically, knowing the fold drive technology was still their closest guarded secret. The delegation's report back to Confederation space would cause an uproar. The primitive humans hadn't just survived. They had created a civilization that in many ways surpassed their former judges. Before the Confederation ship departed, Robert delivered a message. "Tell your leaders that humanity is ready to rejoin galactic society. Not as exiles or inferiors, but as equals. We look forward to their response." As the survey ship disappeared into FTL, Robert stood with his advisors in the command center. "And so it begins," he said quietly. "They'll be back," Linda predicted, "with more ships, more questions, more demands." "Let them come," Alice added. "We're not the same people they banished. We're stronger now, united by what they put us through." The New Dawn system hummed with energy as its inhabitants prepared for what would come next. The radiation that had once been their prison had become their greatest advantage, and the galaxy was about to learn just how much humanity had changed. In orbit, their ships continued their patrols, their fold drives ready, their crews prepared. The next chapter in human history was about to begin, and this time, They would write it on their own terms. 3 months after the survey ship's discovery, a fleet of Confederation diplomatic vessels arrived at New Dawn's borders. This time, humanity was ready. Their own ships, gleaming with radiation-enhanced technology, formed a perfect honor guard. Ambassador William Stone led the human delegation. As the grandson of original settlers, he embodied the changes in humanity. Tall, slightly luminescent, with the enhanced intelligence that had become common among New Dawn's children. The negotiations were set to take place on Harmony Station, a massive structure floating in space between Haven and Forge. The station's design itself was a statement. Its hull channeled radiation into beautiful patterns, demonstrating human mastery over what should have been deadly. "They're scanning everything," Thomas reported from his security station. "Their scientists are practically drooling over our technology." "Let them look," William replied calmly. "They'll only see what we want them to see." The Confederation delegation entered the meeting chamber, led by High Counselor Brightstar. Their expressions betrayed their awe at what humanity had achieved. The chamber itself was a marvel, its walls alive with controlled radiation patterns that formed changing art. 20 years ago, we made a judgment about humanity," Brightstar began. "It appears we may have been hasty." William smiled diplomatically. "We prefer to think of it as giving us an opportunity. You provided us with challenges, and humanity has always excelled at overcoming those." The negotiations that followed were complex. The Confederation wanted access to human technology, particularly their radiation mastery. Humanity wanted guarantees of autonomy and recognition as equals. "Your adaptation to radiation is remarkable," one Confederation scientist observed. "Your entire species has evolved in ways we thought impossible." "Necessity breeds innovation," William responded. "But we're interested in looking forward, not back. We have proposals that could benefit both our peoples." The human delegation revealed selected aspects of their achievements. They demonstrated radiation shielding far beyond Confederation capabilities, medical advances that could benefit multiple species, and environmental engineering that could make hostile worlds habitable. But they kept their greatest advantage, the fold drive technology, carefully hidden. It was their insurance policy, their guarantee of independence. "We offer partnership," William declared, "not submission. The New Dawn system remains sovereign human territory, but we're willing to establish trade relations, cultural exchanges, and technological cooperation." The Confederation delegates huddled in private conferences, clearly struggling with this shift in power dynamics. The humans they had exiled were now offering them help from a position of strength. During a break in negotiations, William stood at a viewing window, watching ships move through space. Linda Roberts, now his chief advisor, joined him. "Your father would be proud," she said. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're shaping the future." "They're still trying to figure out how we manage our faster-than-light travel," William noted. "They know we're hiding something big." The final agreement took shape over days of intense discussion. The Confederation would recognize human sovereignty and technological rights. In exchange, humanity would share selected advances and join in diplomatic relations. "There's one more thing," William announced in the final session. "We want reform of Confederation policies on emerging species. No more arbitrary exile decisions. Every species deserves the chance to develop on its own terms." This demand caused the most debate, but humanity's position was firm. They had transformed their exile into triumph, but they wouldn't let it happen to others. Finally, the treaties were signed. Humanity would rejoin galactic society, but on their own terms. The New Dawn system would remain their stronghold, their proof of what humans could achieve when challenged. As the Confederation fleet prepared to depart, William sent one final message. "Remember this day. It marks the beginning of a new era, not just for humanity, but for all species who dare to dream of something greater." The radiation waves rippled through space, carrying the message to every corner of their system. Humanity hadn't just survived exile. They had turned it into the foundation of their greatest triumph. In the heart of Harmony Station, the negotiation chamber stood empty, but the walls still pulsed with living light, a testament to how far they had come, and a promise of where they would go next. 5 years after the historic negotiations, New Dawn had transformed from an exile's refuge to the galaxy's most innovative center. Ships from 100 worlds moved through the system's radiation-filled space, each protected by human design shields. William Stone stood in the grand observatory of the Galactic Exchange Center on Haven, watching vessels from across the Confederation dock at the massive trade stations. Among them, he spotted a ship that made him smile. It carried refugees from the Talax species, recently saved from a similar fate to humanity's original exile. The first group of Talax scientists has completed their radiation adaptation training, reported Dr. Alice Reed, now heading the Interspecies Development Program. They're adapting even faster than we did. The Talax had faced extinction when their star began to die. The Confederation had offered limited aid, but humanity stepped in with real solutions. Now they were learning to harness radiation just as humans had, building a new future in a designated sector of New Dawn. Their children are already showing signs of enhancement. Alice continued, just like our first generation did. Humanity's influence had spread far beyond technology. Their success had forced the Confederation to reform its entire approach to emerging civilizations. The Human Advisory Council now had a permanent seat in galactic governance, with William as its first chairman. The fold drive technology, finally revealed under controlled conditions, had revolutionized space travel. But humanity hadn't simply handed it over. They taught others to develop it themselves, proving that any species could achieve greatness if given the chance. Latest reports from Forge, Thomas announced, now a senior administrator. The new radiation fusion plants are operating at full capacity. We're providing clean energy to 12 Confederation worlds now. The 3 planets of New Dawn had become specialized centers of innovation. Haven hosted the diplomatic and cultural exchanges. Forge continued pushing the boundaries of technology, and Garden had become the galaxy's premier center for biological adaptation research. But the greatest change was in how other species viewed humanity. What started as fear of their achievements had transformed into respect and admiration. Human adaptation and innovation became legendary, studied in schools across the galaxy. We have a situation. Linda Roberts' voice came through the comm system. Despite her age, she still served as Chief of Emergency Response. A Confederation mining colony in the Nexus sector is reporting critical radiation leaks. Deploy the response team, William ordered instantly. Show them how humanity handles radiation crisis. The next day, news spread across the galaxy. Human experts had not only contained the disaster, but had turned the radiation leak into a power source for the colony. It was a perfect example of the human approach, turning problems into opportunities. In the 25 years since their exile, humanity had developed technologies the Confederation had never imagined. But more importantly, they had developed a new philosophy of cooperation and adaptation that was changing galactic society. Remember when they called us too aggressive and unpredictable? William asked during a council meeting. Now they call us innovators and problem solvers. The New Dawn system itself had become a symbol of transformation. Its dangerous radiation, once seen as a prison, was now studied by scientists from across the galaxy. The human ability to adapt and thrive had become a model for other species facing similar challenges. We've received another request, Thomas reported. The Confederation wants to establish a joint research facility here. They're finally admitting that our methods are worth studying. William walked through the busy corridors of the Exchange Center, passing members of dozens of different species. Each had come to learn from humanity's experience, to understand how a banished species had turned exile into excellence. Our greatest achievement isn't the technology, he told a group of young diplomats from various worlds. It's proving that no challenge is too great when you face it with determination and creativity. The radiation waves still flowed through the New Dawn system, but now they carried messages of hope and progress to the galaxy. Humanity had done more than survive. They had created a new way forward for all species. As the red dwarf star cast its eternal twilight over the system, ships of all kinds moved through the radiation fields, each carrying a piece of humanity's legacy. They had been banished to the stars, but in doing so, they had found their true destiny, not just as survivors, but as teachers, innovators, and leaders of a new galactic age. The story of humanity's exile had become a legend, but their triumph had become a promise to the future. In the end, they hadn't just changed themselves, they had changed everything.